Travis Wayne Goodsell. I guess we can call this part 3 of the defense of Garna, Mejia. The sexist segment of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've had to come to the defense of women because I know the church is corrupt and wicked. When the Book of Mormon, which is the keystone of Mormonism, says that it is to be interpreted in the learning of the Jews, a whole domino effect takes place. Now, as I read the Book of Mormon, I see the Book of Mormon differently, because I'm not using Christian Jesus goggles to interpret the Book of Mormon. And in so doing, so also with Joseph Smith and all of his writings. And so, with the Church of Jesus Christ, obviously they're lying to us. They are deceiving us. And so, the videos I do expose what the church is up to, expose the church's crimes. And so when a simple church news article comes out that has Garna being chosen for the first Spanish spoken word, the majority of people who don't know what I know don't see anything in this. They see this as, oh, great. A woman of strength and power, an education, and a career field is being chosen by the church to do this project. They don't see that the church is exploiting her, that the church is using her to set an example that they really don't approve of her. And so this added segment explains that the church disapproves of her career because she was a journalist. As a journalist, you're supposed to investigate. You know, it was journalists who took down a president of the United States. And because of that, we don't see journalists doing that anymore. Even Bob Woodward was able to interview Trump and expose Trump, and he went and published a couple of books. And yet, our day and time can no longer take down a president. Even when we get him on tape committing high treason, it's still not good enough. We still can't take down a president. But this is why the press is in the First Amendment, is that they are the fourth estate, the fourth in the checks and balances of our government. It's not just the legislative, the executive, and the judicial that keep checks and balances on each other, as Biden was supposed to declare martial law against Congress for seditious insurrection. So so that the debt would be handled that way, according to the 14th Amendment. But the press is supposed to be uncovering all of the scandals in our government and in our society, so that when a religion is acting corruptly and harming its people, we would hope that the press would be free to investigate and to expose them so that our government may know and put a stop to it. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is so powerful and so wealthy that they own the press, especially here in Utah. But the press has come out against the church in the national and world press, especially in these latter days. We have 60 Minutes Australia and the press in Australia that expose the church's violations of Australian law. We have Canada, I think it's called the Fifth Estate, that exposed the church and their crimes in Canada. And then we've had the New York Times that's exposed the church. We've had the Associated Press lately that's exposed the church. And the church can only come out and deny. And with 60 Minutes, they just slam the church. And the church could only reply, "How could they do this to us?" Well, it's simple, you're corrupt. And they've even managed to control the Salt Lake Tribune. I can't remember her name. She usually does the articles critical of the church, but she doesn't do a thorough investigation. The church will not allow her. Her Tribune will not allow her to do the necessary investigation of the church. Fox 13 News Utah, whenever there's a scandal that goes national about the church, they'll do a Fox 13 News investigates. They don't investigate, they just report what they are told to read. And so, for Garna, she's trained as a journalist. She's got experience with this. But then the church got a hold of her because she's not married. And they brought her in to work for them in the communications department for the church news. I don't know what her specific job is and what that entails, but it requires her to be compromised. She cannot be free to follow her education. And we saw this exact same thing with the psychologist, Natasha Helfer. The church owned her. She had to do what the church wanted. And when she went according to the medical science, which is even contrary to her own field in psychology, because psychology is anti-science. That's why the church embraces psychology so much, that the church excommunicated her. You don't go against the church, even if it's true. Even if the investigation is true. This is what I do. I don't fear the church, that they're a criminal mob who threatens my life and who've tried to murder me. I know the church is false. They can't just threaten me to conform and comply and say, "Oh, okay, you're true. It's Christian Jesus. Okay. Please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you want." But that's what other people are faced with. My brother was faced with this. The church threatened his job. to come after me, his brother. And if he didn't conform and comply, he would lose his job. And it's a situation where he was compromised by the church. He was educated by the church at BYU. And so it involves psychology. And so the church had already weakened him with incorrect knowledge. But Garna, she's an outsider. I'm not sure her education, they don't tell us, but her work has taken her throughout the western United States. She hasn't been really a focus in Utah until the church grabbed her and are now exploiting her because she's not married. She needs to be married. And the church, by bringing her into Utah, was hoping to get her married because she can't be a journalist. And so they bring her into the church news to get her focused away from her education, to only praise the church, to only report the good things about the church, to stay away from investigating the church as her education taught her to do. And so now, apparently, they have to pull her even further away, because music and the spoken word is where she has to study her scriptures and study the words of Nelson and make presentations that further push the Mormon agenda, the Mormon doctrine, which is anti-science, which is anti-press, because it's full of lies, it's full of misrepresentation, misinformation, deception. And so I see the exploitation that the church is doing to Garna, so that she thinks she's being given an improvement in her status. She's being used by the church. And she obviously does not know this. Or she's a woman, she's just conforming and complying because she's been kidnapped by the church. And she has to do it or she will lose her job. See, I don't fully know how many Mormons are still in the church because of fear versus how many Mormons are still in the church because of ignorance versus how many Mormons are in the church because of knowing the church is false and still sticking with it willingly. I don't know those statistics. There's no way to know those statistics because they are in the minds of the individuals. And so, yeah, this is a sad reality that all Mormons face. That if you do not conform and comply to the church, they hunt you down. They punish you. And there have been numerous examples of this. And so it's unclear as to why Mormons are still Mormon and why they are not standing up and saying, no more. That's enough. This must end. And so, yeah, I've had to come to the rescue of other women as well. It's me, Jessie. She's not Mormon, but Mormon apologists like Kwaku attack her as she's investigating the church and is finding out the faults of the church, the serious problems of the church. And here you have Mormons who attack her because she's finding out things that disturb her. This is not how you win people over to the church, because it took her further away from the church when the church attacked her. But again, I stepped in to defend her. Even ex-Mormons, ex-Molex, I did the videos when she was going to be interviewed by a sexually deviant psychologist, trying to warn of what was being done to her. And so it's not necessarily the church, but those who have been indoctrinated by the church, who then are weaponized in their own field to attack other people who have left the church. Those too need to be protected. And that one didn't come off well. I lost the majority of my audience trying to protect ex-Molex. So here I am, standing up for a woman I know nothing of, simply because I know that the church is exploiting her, and she needs to be set free.